The film opens in Afghanistan. A drone flies over a small town, drawing the attention of the residents, who promptly prepare for an attack. Soon, a group of American soldiers arrives and discovers that the town is empty since everyone is hiding indoors. The crew keeps marching, and when they come across a suspicious man with a bomb, they instantly surround him and threaten to shoot him if he does not drop his weapon. At first, the man tries to disregard the threat, but when he realizes the soldiers mean it, he pulls out a gun, forcing the troops to kill him with a few shots. Jake then informs Colonel Mason about the dead guy and the device, requesting permission to deactivate it. Mason refuses, but Jake ignores him and works on it, eventually disarming it. At that point, a secret second bomb goes off, killing the majority of the soldiers. Soon, the men emerge from the buildings and surround the Americans, opening fire, resulting in a violent shootout. American soldiers are falling everywhere, and only Jake and Mason are still alive. Jake races to join his colonel and is nearly shot by the enemy, but Mason saves his life just as a chopper arrives. 5 years later, Jake is adjusting to life as a civilian while taking medication to treat his PTSD. Earl owns an auto business. His new position requires him to work extra hard to cope with some entitled customers. After work, Jake returns home to spend time with his family. He constantly tries to preserve a positive attitude for his son, but things get unpleasant in private when his wife reveals that they have a lot of outstanding debts. However, Jake vows to take care of them. Jake shares a picture and narrative about his old squad with his son before putting him to bed. Mason was present during the baby's birth. Jake laments not recalling Mason, and when the boy asks if he has ever killed someone, Jake dodges the topic. The next day, Jake arrives at work to find a group of gangsters saying Earl owes them money. When Jake attempts to kick them out, Fresh sends his guys to beat him up, but Jake easily overcomes them all with a wrench. Fresh stops him by displaying his gun, and he leaves with his crew, promising a second round in the future. Jake then confronts Earl, who admits that he was formerly a member of a gang but was fortunate enough to escape and construct something he could call home. Earl swears to always guard his block, so Jake won't have to worry about his family. Jake feels like he's no longer a mobster. He's still at battle and calls his family to check on them, only to be told by his wife that he should have called the cops rather than getting involved. Later that evening, Jake arrives home and sees Fresh in his car, mentioning retribution before driving away. Jake rushes inside the house, and is shocked to realize his family is dead, so he shouts and cries and has a complete collapse. The cops arrive moments later and attempt to question Jake, but he snaps and flees in his truck. He travels through the city seeking Fresh's car, his mind replaying his fondest family memories. When Jake finds the car outside a wicked club, he rushes inside with a gun in hand and begins murdering every single gang member without hesitation. When he is ready to kill Fresh, the man confesses that he did not intend to harm Jake's family, but he had no choice. This does not change Jake's thinking, and Fresh is also shot. 5 months later, Jake is serving time in prison for his crime, and his PTSD worsens as he spends most of his days envisioning Fresh murdering his family. Jake is astonished to get a visit from Mason, who offers to restart the case. However, Jake resists because he believes he belongs in the prison. He rejects the help and repeats what he told the judge. He took his revenge and now feels no guilt. He would even do it again. Jake then orders Mason to never return and instructs the guard to take him back to his cell. That night, Jake recalls his time in the army and how Mason retired after saving his life. Later, Jake is contacted by a man named Ramsay, who claims to run a private task force. Jake, on the other hand, refuses to let him say anything else and again requests that the guard take him back. Later that evening, a group of masked men burst into his cell, drug him, and take him. When Jake awakens, he finds himself free from prison and learns that his captor is Ramsay, who admits that he has been studying Jake for a long time and is impressed by his record. Ramsay's organization, Section 8, does not play by the rules, and Ramsay believes they can restore Jake's purpose. As a last touch, Ramsay says Jake's son wants to view him as a hero, not a felon, so Jake agrees to join. Later, in Washington, D.C., Ramsay presents Jake to the rest of the team: Elias, Ajax, Brunner, and Mueller. Then he gives him a tour of the Batcave, explaining that they have 8 operatives in Washington and another 8 around the world. Their directives come from the State Department and the National Security Agency, and they are always tied to dealing with threats to national security. Because Jake is still inexperienced, Mueller will keep an eye on him and accompany him on all missions until he gets seniority. Jake will also be granted a bank account, a city apartment, a vehicle, a backstory, and an alias because he is presumed dead by the rest of the world. Then it is up to the team to put Jake through the initiation procedure. Ajax begins to provoke him, pushing him around and throwing blows. Jake refuses to fight and tries to avoid them all, but Ajax becomes so aggressive that Jake snaps. He pulls Ajax to the floor and almost stabs him in the eye with a pen, but then he remembers his family and calms himself. Then Jake leaves, and Ajax, furious, points out that Jake has took fear, implying that he does not belong with them, but Mueller disagrees. Later, Jake and Mueller board a plane and discuss Jake's first mission. The target is a man named Castillo, a defense contractor who also sells weapons. He's gotten his hands on some lethal schematics that he intends to sell to the Russians, so Jake's mission is to retrieve them and murder Castillo and his guys. Jake knows they are effectively a group of assassins and is not looking forward to killing again. In the evening, the duo arrives in Mexico, where they find Castillo prepared to conduct the exchange with a Russian negotiator in a warehouse. While Castillo and the Russian quarrel, Jake sneaks around and kills a guard. The commotion causes both gangs to believe the other is setting them up, which sets them against one another, and their dispute quickly escalates into a complete gunfight. The gang members begin dying one by one, and even force a car to explode, bringing the struggle to an end. Then Jake appears and murders every survivor before peering into the car, where there are 2 terrified women. Jake ignores them and collects the schematics before departing. Later, at the base, Ramsay chastises Jake for jeopardizing the mission's credibility by allowing those 2 women to survive. Jake tries to explain that they were victims and accuses Ramsay of disrespecting human life, but Ramsay threatens to return him to prison if he does not comply. Then Jake is fired, and Mueller assures Ramsay that Jake performed admirably, but Ramsay remains skeptical, so Ajax intervenes and indicates that Ramsay made a mistake. When he is left alone, Ramsay contacts someone named Locke. The following day in Nevada, mercenary Locke enters a hotel and murders a shown employees before entering a room and scaring away the women before confronting his target. The man knows Ramsay dispatched Locke and attempts to bribe him with a large sum of money, but Locke murders him nevertheless. Afterward, Locke escapes through the hotel's casino, but the guards become suspicious and pursue him. Locke effortlessly beats up every guard that approaches and starts running, smashing items along the way and knocking down the soldiers who follow. He eventually takes out his gun and fires a few bullets to create panic among the gamblers. He also murders a guard before heading outside and taking a car to flee. Meanwhile, Jake arrives to the new house and is surprised to see a frame containing a collection of photos from his time in Afghanistan. This reminds him of a conversation he had with Mason, in which Jake hated himself for injuring him, and Mason made an effort to soothe him. Later, Jake is drinking at the pub when Mueller joins him, so Jake tries to obtain some information from her. Mueller knows nothing about Ramsay, but she does mention that she used to be in the army and struck a commander officer who chastised her. Some weeks later, Ramsay assigns them a new mission to recover buried digital material about a crucial case and assassinate Senator Graham, a traitor to the country who has paid many individuals to remain free. Security will be strict, so Ramsay warns everyone, particularly Jake, that they must fight back. A few hours later, the crew arrives at Graham's event in California, disguised as landscapers. Mueller gets inside and kills all of the guards she can find, but the security ultimately hears of the situation and takes Graham away in a van. While Mueller breaches the senator's computer, Jake pursues Graham, shooting a few bullets but failing to hit him. The vehicle is too quick for him, so Jake takes a shortcut by jumping over a hill and the road. A guard tries to fight him, but Jake quickly kills him before approaching Graham, who begs for his life and claims to have a family. Jake is suddenly overcome by memories and resolves to let Graham live. However, the squad arrives, and Ajax murders Graham before warning Jake not to hesitate. Jake later battles with guilt at home, crying while gazing at photos and drinking. When he notices masked men running outside his window, he hides before they enter his home. The men seek Jake in every room, but he escapes through the back door. The next day, Jake visits Mason and tells him the entire story. Mason states that the original Section 8 was disassembled in the 1990s, and the one that is still operational is a cesspool of disgraced operatives from the Army, CIA, FBI, and other agencies. They even have major connections in Washington, so if Jake flees from Section 8, he is in grave danger. Mason had never heard of Ramsay and intends to make some calls. He also offers to provide Jake with money and a gun. After that, Jake returns to his hometown and receives a call from Ramsay, who requests a meeting to discuss things, but Jake declines. Then Ramsay orders Mueller to contact Locke, who is now hiding in Argentina, and assign him the mission of killing Jake. Jake subsequently runs into his son's best buddy, and as they discuss the tragedy, he discovers that prior to his family's death, Fresh was seen with men dressed in black suits, similar to secret agents depicted in comic books. Before he can gather any more information, Locke appears and begins to fire, so Jake pulls the boy into a shop before fleeing. Locke kills a couple individuals, causing panic in the area, and when the police arrive, Locke shoots them as well. This distraction allows Jake to go, so Locke steals a police car and searches for him while calling Ramsay to tell him what occurred. In the evening, Jake hides at Earl's shop and recalls how Earl raised him after his parents died. Suddenly, the computer beeps to signal the arrival of the squad, so Jake and Earl gather some weapons to battle. Jake was almost shot by Elias, but Earl immediately took him out. Bruner then attacks Jake, and they struggle on top of a car before Ajax shoots at them. Bruner turns back to scold him for his recklessness, and Jake seizes the opportunity to stab him with a screwdriver. When Ajax begins firing again, Jake uses his body as a shield and takes his gun to begin shooting back, but he quickly runs out of ammunition. Ajax has a few left, but he wastes them on purpose since he wants to battle Jake hand-to-hand again to establish his superiority. The guys begin exchanging blows all over the shop, and Ajax attempts to stab Jake but is shot by Mueller. After that, Jake checks on Earl, who is well, and gives Jake his car keys so he may flee because the cops are approaching. Mueller later explains in the car that she helped Jake because she, too, wants to leave Section 8. Jake doesn't trust her and asks to be escorted to Ramsay's place. The next day, the two arrive in Montana and attempt to sneak through a forest to locate Ramsay's cabin. But when Jake looks around, he's knocked unconscious. After having another dream about his family, Jake awakens chained to a chair in a room with Ramsay and Mueller, who have been working for Ramsay to set up Jake's trap. Ramsay claims he has a surprise for Jake, who is surprised to see Mason enter the room and find that he has also been working with Ramsay. The group needed an agent with Jake's skills, so Mason advised them on how to contact him. This suggests they were the ones who paid to kill his family. Jake cannot believe Mason deceived him, but Mason just states that Jake was wasting his talent on cars and a child. Afterward, the company leaves Jake alone, and Mason pays Ramsay and Mueller the agreed-upon amount. Ramsay suggests they kill Jake because he is a liability, and Mason agrees, but he looks inside. While Mueller tallies the money, Mason goes to see Jake and releases him before disclosing the truth. He'd been paid to take down Section 8 from the inside, and now he wants Jake to help him finish the job. Then Mason intentionally sets on the alarm, and when two guards arrive to investigate, they are promptly killed. More men arrive, and the duo shoots them all as they make their way to reach Ramsay. Another shootout breaks out as bullets demolish their surroundings. When Ramsay notices them, he shelters with Mueller and offers Jake the money for Mason. Jake refuses the shot, so Ramsay tries to persuade Jake that it's all Mason's fault, but Jake doesn't believe him. While they dispute, Mueller creeps around and attempts to shoot Jake, but Mason orders him to move and takes the bullet himself, knocking Mueller down and returning. Jake rushes to check on his friend, and Ramsay attempts to take the money, but Jake scares him away with a few shots. Mason then asks Jake to finish the job, and he dies. Mueller intervenes and attempts to shoot Jake, but she is out of ammunition, so they begin fighting hand in hand instead. But he takes advantage of the opportunity to turn her own hand against her and kill her. After that, Jake goes outside and sees Ramsay depart in a car, so he takes a car and follows him. Both men begin to catch fire as they drive recklessly, and Ramsay becomes so preoccupied that he crashes. Jake approaches the wreck, and when Ramsay criticizes him for hesitating, Jake murders him. In the evening, the police bring Jake to meet General Savoy, Mason's boss. Savoy offers Jake a job and a fresh start if he agrees to join his team, but Jake declines, claiming he has nothing to fight for. Just in case, Savoy hands him his card. Later, Jake goes home to discover Locke waiting for him since he is still determined to complete his job as his reputation requires. Soon, a hand-to-hand fight breaks out, destroying several items and furniture in the room. When the battle continues into the kitchen, both of them grab knives and continue to attack each other until Locke knocks Jake to the floor. This allows Jake to recover his gun and eventually kill Locke. The next morning, Jake leaves Earl a voicemail thanking him for everything and announcing his departure. Meanwhile, Jake is on a bus and notices a woman enjoying a tender moment with her son. Jake calls Savoy and accepts his offer, telling him he has something to fight for. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.